Faith. You see, faith is easy when all is going well. I'll tell you at the onset that we're going to go a little bit overtime today, and I won't be taking any questions in the middle. Perhaps afterwards we'll have a time to take some questions. When we find ourselves going through difficult times, when we find ourselves struggling to cope, when there's real pain and suffering, that's when the challenge of faith really comes. Yet to hide from the question that I posed, where is God when it hurts, leaves a void in our search for understanding of Judaism and our understanding of God. We have to be willing to take on the question. Our understanding of finding meaning and fulfillment in our lives, our understanding of what faith is all about, is lacking if we don't take on the hard questions. So we have to talk about it because life includes pain and suffering. And our challenge is to find fulfillment even when we find ourselves in the most difficult of times. I don't intend on answering all of your questions on suffering, because your questions are my questions. There are no easy answers. But I would like to share some thoughts, some perspective, perhaps some insight into the Jewish response to suffering and to pain and to tragedy. So we have a gift. The gift that's been given to us offers us so much. That's the gift of the Torah. Because the Torah is not just a book of laws, it's not just a book of mitzvot, it's not just a book about commandments, but it's a way of life. Torah means teachings. It provides us with a guidebook for all moments of life. So I want to present to you today two models. The model of the book of Genesis, as we study about faith in the book of Genesis, and the model of the book of Exodus. And I'll show you that they're not the same. We're going to spend the majority of time today on the Exodus model. But first, let me present to you the Genesis model. What do I mean by the Genesis model? The patriarchs had a lot of faith. The book of Genesis deals with Abraham, with Isaac and Jacob and the matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. And they were filled with faith. They never questioned God. They never challenged God. Well, let's do a quick review. Abraham was tested by God 10 times to see that his faith was complete. And nowhere do we find him complaining to God, why are you doing this to me? Now, one verse says that. And he would have had every right to say that. God says, leave your parents' house, go to the land that I will show you. And he takes him to the land of Canaan. And the moment he gets there, there's a hunger in the land. Most of us would say, hello, why'd you send me here? There's no food. There was more food from where I came. But he doesn't challenge. And this happens over and over in his life. He is challenged. He is tested by God. And he passes with flying colors. He never questions God, why are you doing this? He is perfect in all of these tests. The most famous of all, the binding of Isaac, there too. But one can say, you could respond to me and say, that although he faced difficult days, he never really faced suffering. He didn't suffer. He didn't actually sacrifice his son. He was willing to sacrifice his son. Yes, so those 3 days were difficult, but at the end of the story, he didn't have to sacrifice his son. He never sacrificed. It was all a test. In fact, we find that he was blessed with wealth and with fame, and miracles happened for him. At the age of 100, he gave birth to a son, Isaac. So you could respond and say, yes, he was a perfect individual of faith, but he lived a pretty good life. Isaac too, he displays tremendous faith. He's at the binding of Isaac. He's the guy on the altar. He's willing to go on the altar. But there too you could make the case. The fact is he wasn't slaughtered. The fact is he didn't suffer in life. He struggled in life, but there was no suffering in life. But when I get to the third patriarch, when I get to Jacob, you can't say that to me. Because Jacob suffers. He suffers a great deal in life. He's the twin of Esau. He has to run for his life. His brother wants to kill him. He runs to his uncle Lavan, who's a swindler. He's stuck living by his uncle for 22 years. When he finally escapes there because Lavan wants to chase him and kill him, his brother Esau is back on the scene, again coming after him. His daughter Dinah is raped. His wife Rachel, who he loves so much, dies young. And then we have 22 years of grief from not knowing what happened to Joseph. That's a life of suffering. His most peaceful years of his life were the last 17 years of his life. When he lived in Egypt, he didn't even live in Israel during those 17 years. That was a life of suffering. And yet we don't find him complaining. Grieving, yes. Praying, yes. Fighting back against his enemies, yes. But we don't find complaints. He accepts faith. God knows what he's doing. And he accepts what comes his way. So that first model, the model of Genesis, the first model of the Bible, demonstrates a strong faith in God. Believing and feeling that God knows what he's doing and accepting what comes your way. Yet keep in mind this, the suffering that Jacob experiences, the discomfort of Abraham and Isaac that they experience, are all happening to them. They are the subject of the suffering. Jacob is the subject of the suffering. He chooses not to complain about it. But he is the focus of the suffering, not someone else. You need to keep that in mind as we're going to contrast that with the Exodus model. If we look into the book of Exodus, that's the book where Moses takes center stage. We're past the era of the patriarchs and matriarchs. We enter into the Moses era. And we're going to focus today on how Moses, our greatest leader, dealt with suffering. But not his suffering, but the suffering of others. That's different than the Genesis model. Moses is going to see others suffer. And he's going to have a very different reaction than Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The book of Exodus opens with the Jewish people in Egypt. They're called the Hebrews. They are enslaved by the Egyptians. And we learn early on about the birth of an individual named Moshe. He's raised in two worlds. In his parents' home in his youth, and in the house of Pharaoh as he grows up. The Torah will only give you short snapshots of Moses' life. You don't know much about the first 80 years of Moses' life, only the few snapshots that the Torah gives you. I want to present to you these snapshots that the Torah tells you. He saw an Egyptian beating upon a slave and he gets involved because he doesn't tolerate injustice. It's an important thing to remember about Moses. It's a short picture, but it tells you a great deal. He sees one slave fighting with another. Two Jews are fighting. And he gets involved because he cannot tolerate hatred. He doesn't like people fighting with each other. Another picture, he has to run for his life. He leaves Egypt. And when he arrives in Midian, he sees the shepherds, the male shepherds, harassing the female shepherds. And he gets involved because he cannot tolerate the strong picking on the weak. The last snapshot you get is that he's a good shepherd, that he cares for his flock, he cares for his sheep. All of those are important criteria for us to understand why did God pick Moses. That's all we get as far as the narrative of his first 80 years of his life. We'll get much more information about his next 40 years, but for the 2/3 of his life, just these snapshots, and it's enough, because it shows us his character. Then Moses will see a burning bush, and he hears the voice of God, And God tells him that 210 years is long enough and it's time for the Jewish people to leave Egypt and to come home. The suffering will come to an end. Moses is all excited about the end of slavery, but he doesn't feel worthy of accepting the role of the leader. And it's this humility that he has that will continuously, for the rest of the Torah, shine through about Moses, that prevents him from accepting the job at first. He's not excited about taking the job. He says to God, who am I? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? You say you have heard the cries, so you take them out. You're God. They're your people. You take them out. God responds, I will be with you. You're going to be representing me. I'll be there every step of the way. So he says, and who are you? Mashimo. What is your name? You come to me, you're God. I'm supposed to go to the people and tell them God met me. How? Who? What? And this goes back and forth, and God will give him clear instructions what to say, what to do, what to say to the Jews, how to convince the Jews. And Moses comes back with, but they won't believe me. They won't believe me. The Jews won't believe me. So God says, no problem. I'll give you some signs. I'll give you some miracles to prove your legitimacy. You'll take your staff, you'll throw it to the ground, it will become a serpent. He gives them different signs. You'll wow them with the miracles. They'll believe you. They'll believe you. The debate goes on and on. The Medrash tells us it went on for 7 days. God's talking to a human being for 7 days, arguing with him to take the job. What's developing here in this 7-day period is this personal, private lesson by God, teaching Moses about the way he operates things. And Moses is milking God for information. He has this chance to ask him all these questions. He's going to keep asking. What's your name? What's your attributes? All of these details. Imagine you had the opportunity to talk directly to God and have your questions answered. You're also not going to want that audience to end right away. So Moses keeps it going. And finally, Moses has no choice. God says, it's time to go. Enough is enough. And he makes his way to Egypt. And to his great surprise, the Jewish people believe him. They accept it. They've been waiting for this all these years. And they begin to celebrate. We're going home. Pack the bags. God's going to redeem us from our bondage. And then Moses goes before Pharaoh. And he has the quote that he's supposed to say to Pharaoh. Who told him what to say? God. Ko amar Hashem Elokei Yisrael. So says the God of Israel. Shalach es ami. Send forth my people. Let my people go. And he's given this very sharp response by Pharaoh. Who is God that I should listen to his voice? You come to me and you tell me, God? Who's God? I want to read to you, I'm just going to read it to you, from chapter 5, book of Exodus. I'm going to read it quickly, just pay attention, it's just a storyline. And afterwards Moses and Aaron came and said to Pharaoh, so said the Lord God of Israel, send out my people and let them sacrifice to me in the desert. And Pharaoh said, who is the Lord that I shall heed his voice to let Israel out? I do not know the Lord, neither will I let Israel out. So far there's no surprises here. Because God kind of let Moses know it's not going to happen right away. His heart is hardened, he's stubborn, but eventually you will succeed. So they respond to Pharaoh. They said, the God of Hebrews has happened upon us. Now let us go a 3-day journey in the desert and sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest he strike us with a plague or with a sword. But the king of Egypt said to them, why, Moses and Aaron, do you disturb the people from their work? Go to your own labors. Get out of here. Go do your own thing. And Pharaoh said, behold, now the people of the land are many, and you are stopping them from their labors. You're disturbing them with these fantasies that they're going home. So on that day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and the officers, saying, you shall not continue to give stubble to the people to make the bricks like yesterday and the day before yesterday. Let them go and gather stubble for themselves. So every day they were given bricks, and they had a quota how many bricks they needed to lay that day. Pharaoh says to the guys in charge, from now on, don't give them any bricks. They're going to make their own bricks. They're going to have to find their own ingredients to make their bricks. But the quote at the end of the day must be the same, which is impossible. It'll take you half a day just to find the straw, whatever you need, the lime, whatever you need to make the bricks. But But the number of bricks that they have been making yesterday and the day before yesterday, you shall impose upon them. You shall not reduce it, for they are lax. Therefore they cry out, saying, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let the labor fall heavy upon the men, and let them work at it, and let them not talk about false matters. So the taskmasters of the people and the officers came out and spoke to the people, saying, so said Pharaoh, I am not giving you stubble. You go take for yourself stubble from wherever you find it, because nothing will be reduced from your work. So the people scattered throughout the entire land of Egypt to gather a gleaning for stubble. And the taskmasters were pressing them, saying, finish the work, the requirement of each day and its day, just as there was stubble. And the officers of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had appointed over them, were beaten, saying, why have you not completed your quota to make bricks like the day before yesterday, neither yesterday nor today? So the officers of the children came and cried to Pharaoh, why are you doing this to your servants? We're trying to work hard. Why are you beating us? Stubble is not given to your servants, but they tell us, make bricks, and behold, your servants are beaten, and your people are sinning. But he said, you are lax, just lax, therefore you say, let us go, let us sacrifice to the Lord. And now go and work, but you will not be given stubble, nevertheless the same number of bricks you must give. The officers of the children of Israel saw them in distress, saying, do not reduce the number of your bricks to requirement of each day in its day. They met Moses and Aaron standing before them when they came before Pharaoh's presence. And now they turn against Moses and Aaron. And they say, may the Lord look upon you and judge, for you have brought us into a foul odor in the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of his servants, to place a sword into their hand to kill us. You see, Moses knew it wasn't going to be easy, but what shocked Moses here was that Pharaoh turned it. Instead of him just saying no, he made life even more miserable for the slaves. He beat them because of it. He gave them impossible quotas and beat them when they couldn't fill the quotas. So the same people that were celebrating the day before were going home and not celebrating today. They're being beaten today. You're Moses. You're a man of faith. God just spoke to you. You spent 7 days talking to God. How do you react to this? How do you react to seeing your fellows suffering like this? What do you do? Moses is about, in verse 22 that I'll read to you in a moment, to unleash a complaint against God. It's more than just a complaint. It's a protest. It's an attack. And he doesn't hide his words. He uses strong language. Verse 22, Moses addresses God. And he says, O Lord, Lama hari'osa la'am hazeh. Why do you do such harm to this people? Lama zeh shalachtani. Why did you send me? That word hari'osa is evil. Why did you do evil to your people? Why did you ever send me? And since I have come to Pharaoh to speak in your name, I did what you asked me to do, God. Heira la'am hazeh. More evil came unto the people. There would have been no salvation that has come to his people. Very different than the book of Genesis. Very different than the characters of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who were all yes sir people. Bring your son, your only son, to the mountain that I will show you, and bring him as an offering. Okay, got up early in the morning to do. Moses sees his fellows being beaten, and he's not this loyal servant anymore. Lama hari'osa la'am hazeh. Why you, God? Of all, I would never expect that God would do evil to our people. This verse is perhaps one of the most powerful, honest verses in all of the Bible. And from this one verse, we can learn so much about our question today. Of faith and suffering, where is God when it hurts? I'd like to make 11 observations with you on this one verse. Bear with me. You ready? You'll be tested on it. 11 observations. Number one, there is no religion in the world that it would have recorded in its holiest book, its leading man, its holy man, its prophet, unleashing an attack on God. They would have deleted it from the book. You can't talk that way about God. This should prove to you the honesty of the Torah. Moses is upset with God, and his words are recorded for all of us to read and to study for all eternity. If a human being wrote this Bible, he would never have left this quote in, because it has the leading prophet of all time challenging God. But it's here because it's an honest book, and that's what Moses said. That's observation number one. Number two, we always believe that if God would only come talk to us, everything would be okay. We all have doubts, we all have confusion, we all have questions, but if God woke us up this morning, if God woke me up and said, "Good morning, Moshe," that's all I would need. He's there, he's watching me, he's talking to me, right? It's all going to be perfect because God spoke to me. We all think that way. If only we had a private audience with God, I would never have questions anymore. Here's a character who had a 7-day audience with God. He spoke to God. He questioned God. And he's more angry than anyone else. He's more confused than anybody else. It's okay. The Torah is telling us it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to challenge God. It's okay to battle with God. Our very name Yisrael means to wrestle with God. You're not religious because you have questions. Moses had questions. He's the most religious guy I know. And he had more questions than anyone else. Observation number 3. We have to separate two things that we often confuse. Separate faith that there is a God with faith that everything is okay. They're two different faiths. Moses knows there's a God. He has no doubts that there is a God, that there's a creator of the world. His problem is that he just witnessed the suffering of others, not the Genesis model where he was the one suffering. Pharaoh wasn't whipping his back. He was whipping the back of others because of him. Jews are crying in pain, and Moses says, it's not okay. I'm not just going to accept this. He protests, he fights, he battles, because it's not okay. It's not a condition he can accept. He can't go to sleep at night. He can't even function during the day. Observation number 4. Most surprising is God's response to this attack by Moses. Let me read to you the next verse after what I read to you about what Moses says to God. So now God's going to respond to him. What do you think that response is going to be? What do you think it should be? It can go one of two ways. Either, don't you dare talk to me that way. Let's get something straight. I'm not your friend here. I'm God. You don't talk to me that way. You want to work for me, you're going to learn who's boss. That's one way. There's the other way. Respond to the question. You were asked the question, why did you do this? Why was it part of the divine plan to send me to cause more pain to the people? That was the question. God will neither do one or two. This is what God says. And the Lord says to Moses, Atosira, now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a mighty hand he will send them out, and with a mighty hand he will drive them out of his land. All he says is, now you're going to see what's going to happen. Didn't answer his questions, but didn't attack him for speaking that way. Isn't that interesting? Didn't say, you can't talk to me that way. That's disrespectful. And on top of that, God chose to record Moses' verbal attack in the Torah, left unanswered. He could have easily deleted the verse. We would never have known it happened. It was a private conversation between Moses and God. But when God writes the Torah, he inserts it. He puts it in. He wants us all to know what Moses said and that he didn't answer Moses. Why? Perhaps so that we sitting here today discussing this most difficult subject will know that it's okay to question. That it's okay. That Moses questioned and we can question. I'll go a step further. God wants us to question suffering. He never wants us to be comfortable with it. He wants us, upon seeing someone in pain, to cry out from the depths of our heart and souls, Lama hare osa. Why are you doing this to this person? He deserves better. I expected better from you, God. It's so honest. It's so true. We don't have to hide our true feelings, nor should we. So God records it because he's showing us this is how you should react when you see the suffering of others. Observation number 5. Just to throw faith in someone's face who's in pain. You say, where's your faith? Have faith. Strengthen your faith. It's so cold and so arrogant. We need to recognize the emotional and physical and psychological pain that a person's going through, that it's real. It hurts. And you can't just brush it away with words. You can't just say to someone, have faith. It's a story of a rabbi who was a rebbe in the yeshiva. His daughter was in a car accident, and his daughter didn't survive. So the students heard about it, but their teacher was not aware. The teacher was in school. The students heard what took place, and they need to break the news to him. So one student is selected to be the one to break the news. So the student thinks of a way to break the news. The student says to the teacher, you know, it's written in the Mishnah, it says in our teachings, Kishem shemavarach ala tov mavarach ala ra. The same way you thank God for the good in life, you thank God for the bad in life. So the student says to the teacher, I don't understand. How does one thank God for the bad that happens in life? So the rabbi gives him this whole long discourse on understanding the tremendous growth that comes through pain. And we just don't understand it, but in the truest reality, it's really all good. It's all good. We just don't understand it, but we have to have faith that it's really all good. So the student says, so does that mean that just like you were to dance at your daughter's wedding is the way someone should dance upon hearing bad news? Because the joy should be the same. We just don't understand it, but it's all good. So the teacher says philosophically, yes. So the student says, so Rebbe, start dancing. And then breaks the news that your daughter was in a car accident and she didn't survive. And upon hearing this, he fainted. And when they revived him, he looked to the student and he said, suddenly that teaching doesn't make much sense to me anymore. In philosophy, it's all good. I can philosophize that with you. But not when someone is experiencing pain. It's good for a lecture, perhaps. It's good for a book. But not in real life. When someone is suffering, it's real. Don't discount it with faith. It's all good. At that moment, there's real pain. Moses sees real pain. He's not about to philosophize it away. Observation number 6. God's first words. What did he say? Now you will see. Interesting choice of words. His first word is now. Now we will see. Now, God says, we have a leader. Now we have a leader. I believe that if Moses had turned to the Jew and said to the suffering Jew being beaten and being whipped, and he would have said, don't worry, it's all good. God has a plan. Just have some faith while their backs are being whipped. Perhaps that would have been the response of a man of great faith, but not a leader. A leader has to be caring. A leader has to care about the people that they lead. Moses cares. He feels their pain, he feels their suffering, and so he cries out, if this is your plan, God, I want no part of it. Find someone else. Says God, now you will see, because now I have the leader I've been looking for. Observation number 7. Moses says it's bad enough that Pharaoh said no to the request I made in your name. But not only did he say no, he intensified the exile. My coming to Pharaoh did not bring salvation, but it brought a curse. I raised their hopes. I brought them celebration only to have it dashed. And I feel responsible. Notice he doesn't say, God, what next? I'm here on your mission. What's tomorrow's schedule? What's on the agenda tomorrow? He can't go forward. And he's demanding from God, this suffering has to stop. Because something is wrong. It's very wrong. And I'm not about to continue in this role unless there's relief. Number 8. Moses seems to be more upset with God than he is with Pharaoh. Interesting? He's yelling at God. Pharaoh's the one doing it, and he's yelling at God because he expects evil from Pharaoh. He knows Pharaoh is evil. He's not surprised by Pharaoh's evil. But how could God allow it? How could God set him up for this? Moses is part of the plot. Moses is the one that went to Pharaoh to say, let them go. And it's because of Moses' claim, let them go, that Pharaoh intensifies it and the suffering continues. Number 9, I believe that Moses a few months earlier would not have spoken this way. God was an abstract a few months earlier. I believe that only after the burning bush and the closeness of their relationship does Moses speak this way. Because you're more disappointed when someone you love and feel close with lets you down than when a stranger does. Before this, he didn't know God. But now I thought I knew you. You came along with such compassion, such love, such promise. And it's all dashed. And Moses is left lost. And he doesn't hide it. He lets it out there. He lets it be known. Number 10. The atheist or the agnostic has very little to complain about. At least when it comes to God. Why? Because you can't blame a God you don't believe in. True. You can't blame, if you're saying you're an atheist, stop blaming God for everything wrong in the world. Nor can you blame a God that has nothing to do with you, an agnostic. The struggle for so many in dealing with the Holocaust is where were you, God, which implies a belief that there is a God, and we expected more from you. Because we have a relationship, that's why there's frustration, that's why there's disappointment. If we don't believe in God, we can't ask the question. We can only ask the question if we have the faith that there is a God, and we're let down. And finally, number 11. And this is an important point. They're all important, but I think number 11 perhaps is the most important. God's response. It's an interesting balance. Because he tries to build the faith that indeed there will be redemption. Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. He's building the faith that there's going to be a redemption. It's going to happen. But he's also very careful about not suppressing the compassion that Moses feels to his fellow. He doesn't question Moses for the outburst because he appreciates the outburst. He wants that outburst. And that, my dear friends, is what's so critical for us to understand when we delve into the subject of faith and suffering. Faith does not and should not contradict compassion for one who is suffering. Faith does not and should not contradict crying out when you see pain or when you're in pain. Faith does not and should not contradict wrestling and even being upset with God about a tragedy. In fact, it's only because we have faith that we can. You know, rabbis often find themselves having to deal with families who have experienced tragedies. When I first started, some 40 years ago, you think that as a rabbi, you take the standard line. When you're dealing with suffering, be strong, have faith. We don't understand the ways of the Lord. These are the standard pastor, rabbi answers, you think, right? Remember about 30 some odd years ago, I was living in Oak Park at the time. I was woken up early in the morning. It was like 5 a.m. Phone was ringing. The caller told me there was a terrible accident. A small plane on its way back from Las Vegas went down near Lancaster. The plane was carrying 3 members of one family, 2 brothers and a sister, and the father had just been informed, literally minutes ago, that 3 of his children perished in this small plane crash. He lives in Agoura. Here's the address. Get over there fast. I run into my car, and in those few minutes of going to the address, I'm trying to think, what am I going to say? What do you say? Let's try. Have faith? Does that really work? We don't understand the ways of the Lord. The man just lost 3 children. What do you say? I remember coming to the house, and outside the house there was already some people had gathered. And there was this woman that looked at me, and this is what she said. She said, "What are you doing here?" But it was pointed with that. What are you doing here? And I understood what she said. It made so much sense to me. You represent him. He did this to them. So what are you doing here? It was such a powerful line. It has always stayed with me. What are you doing here? I entered the house. There was very little to say. It's just about compassion. There was a lot of things that needed to be taken care of. His wife was in Israel at the time. We needed to figure out who's going to break the news to his wife and how we're going to get his wife here, or the bodies are going to be flown there, and how to get through autopsies. And there was a lot of stuff, but dealing with the father, there were no words. There was just holding on to someone. When there is tragedy, it's not okay. That's the Moses model. He protests. Years ago, there was a young father of 3 children that passed away in the Borough Park section in Brooklyn. He passed away just before the holiday of Passover. And after Shiva, the widow knew that she needed to be strong for her children, and Passover was just around the corner, so she needed to try to make something out of this Passover for them. So she said to them, we're going to go shopping for clothes, as we often do before the holiday, to buy the kids new clothes. Come, I'm going to take you to the shoe store. We're going to buy you new shoes for each of the little children. And they go into the shoe store, and the man running the shoe store makes 3 helium balloons and gives it to the kids. You know, here's a gift. And the 3-year-old kid runs out of the store and lets his balloon go. So the mother says, "Why'd you do that? He gave you a balloon." And the kid simply said, "But Daddy didn't get one, so I wanted to give it to Daddy." When there are widows, when there are orphans, it's not okay. When you get a call from a parent whose child was just diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, it's not the time to talk about faith. It's the time to protest, because it's not okay. When you walk through the children's ward of any hospital and you see the faces of parents and you see the faces of the children, you look at that verse of Moses, Lama Riosa Lam Hazeh. Why, God? Why? We've all experienced October 7th. We've heard the stories of October 7th. We've seen the newscasts. We've heard from some families, from some survivors. We hear from the families of hostages. It's not okay. The verse of Moses is so striking. It's so poignant. It's so real. We need to feel the pain that Moses felt when he cried out to God Almighty, Lama Hara'osa Lama Zeh. Why are you dealing so harshly with your people, with humanity? And we beg God Almighty for mercy. We need to pray like we never prayed before, from the depths of our heart, from the depths of our soul. I want to share a story with you. As I told you, we're going to go late today, okay? If you have to leave, I understand, but we're going to be going late. 50 years ago, the state of Israel faced one of the greatest threats to its existence when massive Arab armies mobilized and launched a major attack on all of its borders on the holiday of Yom Kippur, known as the Yom Kippur War. One of the bloodiest and most hard-fought wars in Israel's history, the Yom Kippur War, and it did not look good in the beginning. We were taken by surprise, we weren't prepared, and they came with tremendous force. One of the most decorated heroes of the Yom Kippur War was a leader of the IDF Special Forces. His name was Moshe Levi. Moshe Levi is one of the 40 people in the history of Israel to be awarded Israel's Gibor Yisrael, the Hero of Israel award. It's not an award given out lightly, so you understand someone that gets this have demonstrated heroism in Israel's history. It was his unit during the Yom Kippur War that defended what's called the Budapest Outpost. It was the only bunker on the Suez Canal to withstand the Egyptian attack. Sergeant Levy was on the front lines during that battle, and he lost his arm during that battle. A number of years ago, Moshe Levi agreed to be interviewed, and he spoke about what happened that day. So I'm going to tell you from what I saw in the interview with Moshe Levi. He said there were a total of 98 soldiers under his command. Of all the 98 men that he had, only one of them professed to being a religious Jew, or even to believing in God. He was a Yemenite Jew. His name was Zandani. On the first Saturday after the outbreak of the war, Levi's unit was at the Budapest outpost, and they were told to expect a major offensive by the Egyptians. They're coming. They're coming with massive amounts of tanks and infantry. The general came and spoke to Moshe Levi, and he said, Moshe, you guys need to dig a line, and come what may, they can't get by you, no matter what. If they get by you, there's nothing to stop them from going all the way to Tel Aviv. Israel is over. This is the line. You need to draw it, and you have to fight until the end of life to defend the rest of Israel. You're the last line of defense. So Sergeant Levy says to his general, I need reinforcements. I need more men. I need ammunition. I could use some tanks here myself. And he's told nothing will be forthcoming. We're fighting for survival on every front. We have nothing to send you. You're going to have to fight with what you have. They were on their own. Sure enough, as the hours pass in the distance, they hear the rumbling that started getting louder and louder. And they look through their binoculars and they see there's 120 Egyptian tanks coming at them. And then there's infantrymen, literally battalions after battalion after battalion, and they're coming to this point. At that point, one of the troops, he says his name was Avner, came up to Moshe Levi and he said, Moshe, how are we supposed to stop those tanks with what we have? We have some bazooka rockets. They have 120 tanks. What are we doing? He said, I had nothing to answer. I didn't know. Zandani, this Yemenite soldier under my command, jumps up. He's holding in his hand the book of Tehillim, the book of Psalms written by King David. And he yells out, guys, Chevra, with this, we're going to stop the Egyptians. With this. The God of Israel is with us and we're going to prevail. He opens up his book and he starts reading the Psalms out loud. At that moment, remember, my soldiers are not religious, but they all want to participate, but they don't know what he's reading. So they take their helmets and they put it to form like a kippah on their head, and all they do is every once in a while they shout out, Amen. Whatever you're saying, we're with you. Amen. Amen. In Sergeant Levy's words, you know, you hear these type of stories about an event, it's one thing, but I experienced it. I was there. I cannot begin to tell you how close to God everyone else felt at that moment. With this Zandani guy, he was like a prophet of the Bible, the prophets you read about. That's what we were feeling from him. There's a certain energy that he was giving forth, and suddenly we didn't feel like soldiers anymore. We felt like we were angels. Malachei Elokim, we were angels. So I told Zandani, hold up for a second. And I jump up on whatever Jeep we have so I can speak to the guys. And I said, you know, when Avner asked me the question about how we're going to defend this line, I didn't have an answer. But Zandani just gave me the answer. Because we're not just here to protect Tel Aviv. We're here to protect our history of thousands of years. We're here to protect the past, the present, and the future. And I then told my troops that if I make it out alive, I want to promise in front of all of them that I will put on tefillin every single day for the rest of my life. I wanted to join in whatever Zandani was doing, and I didn't know how. So I made that promise. Soon thereafter, the lull was over, the enemy approached, and the battle began. The tanks opened fire. The IDF spread out, and they fired their bazookas and their mortars while Zandani stood and was just yelling out the words of Psalms throughout all the explosions and the smoke. We fired and we fired while the Yemenite read this book of Tehillim out loud. Every shot we fired was a direct hit. Tanks were exploding all over the place, but they had 120 of them. And just as we were running out of ammunition and it looked like we were through, we look up and the Egyptian tanks are in full retreat. They were afraid of what we had, even though we had nothing left. And they just turned around and left. I experienced an open miracle that day, says Sergeant Levy. Many of our guys were wounded in the battle, but none were killed, with the exception of one. Zandani. The Zandani, the one that inspired all of us, the religious one, the man who I feel saved us all, he was the only soldier not to survive that day. As for me, said Moshe Levy, my left arm, the left arm that just moments earlier I stood up and I vowed I would put on tefillin on this arm for the rest of my life, was blown off. I was in the hospital for months afterwards. While certainly grateful for the miracle of that day, these two anomalies, Zandani dying and my arm being blown off, troubled me greatly. It didn't make sense. How does that make any sense? The miracles happen, but the guy that brings about the miracle, he dies, and my arm that I pledged to do this deed of putting on film, I don't have an arm anymore. 2 years later, I was in the United States. They were fitting me for a prosthetic arm. And a friend of mine told me that he was in Brooklyn and that he had seen the Lubavitcher Rebbe and that the Rebbe knew that I was in the United States and asked to see me. He wanted me to come see him. I'm not going to turn the Lubavitcher Rebbe down, so I accepted the audience. We spoke for a long time about Israel's security and Israel's readiness, especially in the light of the lessons learned from the Yom Kippur War. The Rebbe knew it all. He knew the map of Israel. He knew every single battle that took place. He had good information. And then towards the end of the audience, I felt comfortable enough to pose my question or to lodge my protest. Why? Why, of all the soldiers in my unit, was it Zandani? Why is it that the man of faith and inspiration lost his life? And why, of all limbs that could have been taken from me, would it be the very arm which I pledged to put on tefillin? He asks the Rebbe this question. The Rebbe began to cry. The Rebbe had a very special place in his heart for every member of the IDF, and he would mourn the loss of each and every single soldier. The Rebbe looked at them as the loftiest, holiest of our people, who gave their lives al Kiddush Hashem to sanctify God's name. And here was this great war hero asking the Rebbe this question of faith and suffering. And I'm going to paraphrase the Rebbe's answer to Sergeant Levy. He said, by the laws of nature, that was not a battle you could have won. You saw that with your own eyes. You said that yourself. Zandani empowered each of you to reach above and beyond nature. He dedicated his life to something higher, to rising above the constraints of the physical. And in doing so, he became one with God, a holy spiritual being, to the point that his physical body could no longer contain him. He left this world by choice in order to bring down the blessings for the rest. As for you, you weren't destined to survive that day either. You were going to be the second fatality of the battle. And when that shrapnel was coming for you, it was heading for your heart. And that would have been the end. In the last second, the arm that you pledged to do that mitzvah became your shield. And it absorbed the blast for the rest of you. And so you survived. Sergeant Levy in this interview says, after 2 years of agonizing with the spiritual dilemma, I finally found my peace. We don't understand everything, and things are not okay. We don't like many things that happen. We don't make peace with the suffering or with the tragedy, but we do make peace with God. For it's that faith that gives us the capacity to deal and to cope with our grief. We have faith that He indeed has His reasons for everything. And although as a mere mortal I cannot fathom why He would do such a thing, I don't make peace with the suffering, but nevertheless, ani ma'amin. I still believe. Our faith motivates us to seek answers rather than surrender to the suffering. The stronger our relationship is with God, the more strength we will have within ourselves to carry on. Living a life with God and following in His ways and keeping His commandments doesn't guarantee that no pain will come your way in your lifetime. There's no such guarantee. It doesn't shield you from all the suffering, but it does make your relationship a strong one that will allow you to find the strength amidst the tears and amidst the pain. Without this faith, I don't know how we can survive in today's world. Because life is tough, life is rough. You know, we're so used to, at least when we were kids, these sitcoms. I don't know if they still have sitcoms. My days it was I Love Lucy, right? Anyone here from the I Love Lucy generation? The pattern was always the same, right? She always gets in trouble, and then somehow, at the end of the 20 minutes and 26 commercials, she gets out of it, and then da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you're happy again, right? That's what we want from life, right? Every day ends that we're always going to be happy. Somehow Lucy gets out of trouble. It all works out. Life is not a sitcom.
No kidding.
It doesn't work out that way. Some things take a long time to work out, some a lifetime, some a generation. But when you're part of a world with God directing it, at least you know there's a plan. Without that faith, I don't know how you survive. And as we focus on the difficult moments in life, we also have to remember that life has good moments as well. That there's great moments in life as well. And even amidst the broken hearts and the pain and the suffering, we cannot lose sight for the appreciation that we have to have for God, for all the blessings that we have in our lives. Faith allows us to see that life has meaning. A philosopher once said, "He who has a why to live for can bear with almost any how." If we recognize that our life is of great importance and that every moment of life becomes meaningful, even the dark moments. Viktor Frankl, if you haven't read his book, you should read his book, Man's Search for Meaning, writes concerning those who survived the concentration camp, it did not really matter what we expected from life, rather what life expected from us. So long as we have meaning, so long as we have a purpose, we can go forward. And that comes from faith. Deep down, we know that God's there. Deep down, we know we want to have a relationship with Him, even when we're upset, even when we're angry. I use this parable all the time. You know, when you have an infant child, you have to go in for the 3-month immunizations. Hector, could you lower the ear a little bit?
Good.
Thanks.
Like, well,
Make it colder, yes. The 6-month immunizations, right? You got to go through the schedule of the immunizations. At some point, the infant has it figured out. They know when you're getting on the 101 freeway and getting off at DeSoto that you're going to make that left turn and go to Kaiser. They know the smell of that building. They know the room. They know what it all means. And they start crying early on. They start the kvetching because they know they're going and it's not going to be pretty. So now the baby is already at the age where the baby can figure out certain things. They've seen the pattern before. And the kvetching starts as you get into the car and you're going down. No, don't get off at DeSoto. I don't like DeSoto. No, don't make that left turn. No, not this building. They're not verbalizing it, but they're giving it to you with their eyes, please. And then they're brought into the first waiting room. You wait there for 20 minutes, and then they call your name, and you get into the next room, right? And then the nurse comes in, and the nurse is there, and you know what's coming next. What's coming next is the guy in the white robe with the mask. And when that guy comes, oy vey, because he's going to take this very sharp instrument, and he's going to put it inside me, and it's going to hurt, and it's going to cause pain, and I don't like pain. So when the masked man walks into the room, what does the baby do? The baby starts grasping hard the mommy's hand. The mommy feels the baby squeezing. And the doctor says to the mommy, I need your help. I need you to hold your baby down so that your baby doesn't move when I give him the shot. The baby's holding on to mommy's hand to protect, because you're mommy. You tell me you love me 66 times a day. You don't stop kissing me. You show my picture to everyone in the world. You claim you love me. Help! And what does the mother do? The mother holds the baby down. And the baby says something that goes like this. Et tu, Brute? You're in on it? You're with the masked man? And the needle goes in and the pain is there. And here's the miracle of it all. What does the baby do right after? Grabs the mother again. Why are you grabbing the mother? She abandoned you. She didn't only abandon, she helped the masked man out. Because that's the natural inclination of the baby. I need my mother. I think you can figure this out, what we're saying with this parable. God is our mother. We're grabbing on. You're in on it? You're in on it? You're causing me pain? I thought you loved me. I thought everything about my relationship with God was love. You're causing me pain. You're allowing others to hurt me. Et tu, Brute, you're in on this, God. And yet what do? After we're angry, after we go through all these phases, we still want that hug from God. We still want that embrace. That's faith. That's the only way we get through in life. Again, I'm sorry for going a little bit late. I just have a little more to say. I'm skipping around some stuff. There's a story about a group of handicapped Israeli soldiers that visited the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson. And the Rebbe came into 770, he had all of these fellows in wheelchairs and some missing arms and some. And the Rebbe spoke to each one, and the Rebbe said to them that he didn't like the word handicap. He said it's not the proper word, because it focuses on the negative. The words you should be called are the unique ones. You're unique. Because you're in a unique position. That God has a role for you to play in this world in the condition that you find yourself. Not a handicap role of unimportance, but a unique role of tremendous importance. I tell you this story because those who have suffered a tragedy, those who have suffered pain, are in a unique position. Because we have to translate that pain into action now and those tears into growth. We forge ahead and we effect change. We work doubly hard to see to it that others don't have that pain. We're not handicapped. We're scarred. We're hurt. We're sad. But we're not finished. There's work for us to do. God says to Moses after his bitter complaint, now it's time to go back to Pharaoh. Now I want you to speak to Pharaoh. So when you say, let my people go, I want to hear it in you. Now we're going to see the Exodus unfold. Because now you've seen pain. And you're in a unique position now to be the leader of the Jewish people. Because you will fight against evil, you will fight against exile, you will fight against pain even more because you know pain, because you've seen it, you've tasted it, and now you're in the best position to fight it. You know, you've often heard this word, closure. You've ever heard that word, closure? It's bubamyces. It's not true. There's no closure when you lose a loved one. We don't experience closure. There are other things in life you can experience closure with, but not pain and suffering, especially of losing a loved one. The pain of someone that you love that leaves this world does not go away. It never gets forgotten. No parent who has ever lost a child ever experiences closure. But the memory of your loved one and the pain that you experience can launch you into a crusade. You ever hear of the group called MAD? Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Who started MAD? Someone who lost a child to drunk driving. How many cancer researches are done by funds of people that lost loved ones to that particular cancer? Megan's Law. John Walsh, who's the son of America's Most Wanted. Those of you who may remember from years ago, Fred and Patty Goldman lived in Agoura, who dealt with the O.J. Simpson trial. They're driven by the pain they experience to see to it that this change. I'll conclude with this story. A daughter complained to her father about her life and how things were so hard for her. She didn't know how she was going to make it and she wanted to give up. She was tired of fighting and the struggling, and it seemed as one problem started, another problem came. So our father was a chef, and he took her to a kitchen, and he filled 3 pots with water and placed each on a high flame. And soon the pots came to a boil. In one pot he placed carrots, in the second pot he placed eggs, and in the third pot he placed some ground coffee beans. And he let them sit and boil without saying a word. The daughter's trying to think, I go to my father fetching and crying about life, and my father's going to the kitchen and he's cooking carrots, eggs, and coffee. What are you doing, Dad? Wait. He waits for all 3 pots to boil. He takes the carrots out of the pot and he puts it into a bowl. He takes the egg out of a pot and puts it into a bowl, and he takes a ladle of coffee and he puts it into a cup. And he says to his daughter, what did you just watch? What do you see? She says, I see carrots, eggs, and coffee. He brought her closer and he said, now touch them. The carrot felt soft. Touch the egg became hard. And now smell the coffee, this coffee smelled good. Now she's very confused. He explained that each of them faced the same adversity, boiling water. They all faced boiling water, but each reacted differently. The carrot went in strong and hard and unrelenting, but after being subjected to the boiling water, it softened and became weak. The egg was fragile. Its outer shell had protected the liquid interior, but after sitting through the boiling water, it became hard. And the ground coffee beans were unique, however. They went into the boiling water and they changed the water. Which are you, he says to his daughter? When the difficult times come knocking on your door, are you the carrot or the egg or the coffee bean? How do you react to difficult times? Are we like the carrot that seems hard, but when we're hit with pain, we wilt, we become soft, we lose our strength, we lose our faith? Are you like the egg, starting off with a soft heart, but after facing hardship, you become hardened and stiff? Or are you like the coffee bean? Not only won't you make me wither away or turn cold and distant to others, but I'll even get better. I'll give off a beautiful aroma and taste great. Jewish history has always been like the coffee. When things are at their worst, we get better, we get stronger, we stand up to the challenge. So many who have experienced tragedies fade away. They bury themselves with grief and can never pick up the pieces and can never carry on, and I can't blame them. Pain is hard, suffering is hard. But when there are those who have suffered and yet utilize the opportunity to fight on, not only for themselves but for others, they are the heroes of our society. So where is God when it hurts? He's right there with you. He's right by your side. You know, the fellow that's after his time in life comes to the heavenly world, and you're shown a videotape of your entire life. Only the videotape is strange because it actually doesn't show your body. It only shows your footprints wherever you walked in life, wherever you went in life. So he's watching the movie of his life and he sees his footprints. Wherever he was going, he sees his footprints. But he sees a second set of footprints wherever he's going. And he asks the angel showing him in the video room, hey, what's the second set of footprints? He says, that was God. God was always with you. He's always watching with you. He's always watching with you. But then he notices that when things got really tough in life, when he was going through the difficult days, it's back to only one set of footprints. So he says to the angel in charge of the video room, I don't get it. When I really needed him, he abandoned me. He left me alone. Then the angel says, no, silly man. You think if God didn't lift you up and put you on his shoulders during those times, you ever would have survived? Where is God when it hurts? He's right by our side. He's holding on to us. He's right there with you. He's supporting us. Only our eyes cannot see him because it's so dark in the room. The Rebbe promised us that we have the ability to turn on the lights. Not just the lights in our own sorrows, our own difficulties, but the lights of the entire world. That we can actually bring Mashiach. We can bring the day where there's no more suffering at all. And that's up to us. One good deed, one positive good deed, one extra word of prayer, one extra act of kindness, one more act of charity. We can change the world and bring about a world where indeed we don't have to have lectures on faith and suffering, because it's all going to be about goodness and peace and tranquility for the entire world. May that happen speedily in our days. Amen.